All right, welcome to this last video of this short series on the new features of ZBrush 2021.5. So this last video is just to cover a couple of extra things that I found to be, really helpful. And I think it's just going to enhance your overall workflow if you're already familiar with certain tools like the Sculptris Pro, for instance. And I'm going to show you the new filter in the filter palette, or in the filters from the render palette. So what I'm going to do is, let's go ahead and select I'm going to use a sphere. Actually, I have it here, so I'm just going to use that as a reference, so I don't have to build it from scratch. There we go. So this is just something that I was using to, let me just change my brush as well. So this is something that I was using to test some of the features, especially the one that I'm going to show you, which is the Sculptris Pro. So the way that I did this ice cream cup was essentially with the thick skin, and then I use the actually I'm going to show you very quickly with this one. This is something from one of the second video, the first video actually. So all I did was clicking on the Gizmo 3D, bring in the cog icon and click on taper, and I will push that to create a sort of shape. Accept that. We can maybe scale it a little bit, and then we can use the twist to give it some twist, like so, maybe even more than that. All right, click accept, and then I went with something like this standard, or the damp standard brush. Actually, I think it was a damp standard brush, larger brush size, and maybe not that large, and just give it a bit of shape to generate that sort of cone thing. But again, it was just testing and taking advantage of those features like the thick skin and all of that, right? So that's how I generated this. But then this is drops of ice cream. That's what I wanted to show you with the new Sculptris Pro. Or not the new Sculptris Pro, sorry, the existing Sculptris Pro, but the new enhanced workflow. So if I go ahead and enable Sculptris Pro and select something like the snake hook brush, right? The Sculptris Pro allows you to generate geometry. If I turn on the polyframe, there we go. And I click and drag. Let me see if I have thick skin. Yeah, have thick skin on. Make sure that you have that off because it doesn't work with the Sculptris Pro. So I can click and drag, and as I drag, ZBrush is going to generate more resolution, right? Which is great. I also have RGB enabled, so it's just generating some color but shooting. There we go. Right? So that's an existing feature, and it's absolutely fantastic. But if you want to generate these type of things, it's really easy to just using the Sculptris Pro and a snake hook brush to just pull down like so, because again, ZBrush is going to generate that mesh, so you don't have to worry about anything. You can just keep pushing like so. But then if you want to smooth this out, if you want to hold the shift key and start smoothing, by default what ZBrush is doing is sort of reducing the amount of polygons or erasing this, right? And you don't want that. And of course you can, press, less harder when you are smoothing, but it's just probably gonna create very thin droplets in this case, right? So the way that I generated these more chunky ones is using an alternative method or an alternative smoothing algorithm that is being part of ZBrush for ages now, since I can remember. The thing is that the way that you access it is not the most intuitive way. So if you hold the shift key to access the smooth brush and you start smoothing, this is the normal effect, right? But if you hold shift, click, and then let go of the shift key without actually letting go of the click, ZBrush performs an alternative smoothing method. So it's a smoothing, but at the same time is kind of like inflating the mesh, right? So again, if you want to reduce the size here, I just use the normal shift key and smooth to reduce that. But if you want to increase the size, you can do that by holding shift, then let go of the shift while you're clicking and doing that. Again, this is not the new feature, so this is something that has been part of ZBrush for a while now. It's just that in the new version, now we have this kind of like alternative algorithm of the smoothing brush as its own brush, which is awesome. So let me undo that. I'm going to click on the brush palette, and is this one right here, so the smooth alt. So if I click on this brush, ZBrush is going to give me this pop-up window telling me that this alternate brush is going to be my new default smooth brush once I click on the shift key. So I'm going to click OK. And now if I press shift, you'll see in the thumbnail I have the one that I just mentioned, the alternative one. So now by default, I just need to press the shift key and it's going to give me this effect. So that's fantastic. I mean, to be fair, again, this has been in ZBrush for a while, but this is my go-to smooth brush. This is the one that I use most of the time, unless I want to reduce the volumes of the mesh. Now, what's really good about this is that now ZBrush took that original smoothing brush, the one that removes or shrinks the mesh, and made it the alternative method. So now I can hold shift, click to use this normal, the new normal, basically the new smooth, and then I can let go of the shift, and now I'm back to the other brush. So this is great because you can choose which one works best for you, which one gives you the best result, and then you can just alternate and make the one that you use the most the one that lives in the shift key, and then you can always access the alternative one from the shift key, clicking and then letting go of the shift key. So that's how I generated those droplets of ice cream. To be fair, this one is pretty long, so I probably just want to click or shift click, let go of the shift now that I have the opposite one, and create a droplet like that. And this is now a different mesh that I can mask out. For example, invert, bring in the gizmo, center to the unmask areas, and then I just push it like that. And just to take advantage of another feature that was introduced in the previous version, obviously, with the dynamics, I'm just going to duplicate this very quickly, and I'm gonna split the unmask areas, so that bit here, so just a little droplet there. I'm gonna enable my floor. I'm gonna go to dynamics. Where is dynamics? Here. And just for fun, I'm gonna recalculate this, and I'm gonna increase the firmness of this a little bit, add some iterations, click on run simulation. Whoops. Nope. No, that's not what I wanted. I'm running the simulation on the ice cream, which is not bad, but I just wanted to run it in the little droplet. All right, so recalculate. We have floor collision, run simulation, and now we have the droplet being dropped into the floor. That's it. That's all I wanted to do to just complete this setup. But it's just using the different features in ZBrush in combination, and it's ultimately you have at your disposal a bunch of different tools that at the end of the day you combine the way that you want to, but they all make you work faster and create like very specific things in a much really fun way. So for instance, this thing, there's no real reason why I had to do this, but it's just fun. Same thing as using the clay tools or the brushes to create the clay effect. All right, and just to wrap this one up and the whole series, I'm just gonna go back to one of my examples. I think this is the one that I built before. Yeah. So this one, if I want to render this out, I'm gonna go to the render palette and just click. Actually, let's just press in the render pass. I'm gonna press the BPR button here. And I'm also going to turn on perspective so that it doesn't look as weird. Yep, from here, let's go ahead and render this out. So pretty decent. We have that nice ambient occlusion in the render, which is awesome. But I want to tweak a little bit of the lighting. So I'm going to take the light as well, push it up a bit. And also in the render palette, I'm going to go to the shadow, and I'm going to diffuse that shadow by increasing the angle to something like that. I mean, maybe some more rays, so 48 rays, and let's just do the same thing, 48 as an angle, and this is just it's kind of like increasing the spotlight that comes from the top now and make it a bit more diffuse. So if I click on BPR, you see that the shadow is a lot more diffuse. But what I'll do now is enable the floor so that also ZBrush gives me kind of like a contact shadow or like a drop shadow really, or not a drop shadow, a cast shadow, right? So I'm going to click on BPR, and it should have worked. Let me just do it again. I just moved the camera a bit. There we go. So now we have that nice shadow coming from the top. So then the new filter that has been added to this new version of ZBrush is to present this in a more kind of like in a museum type of thing, in an environment that it will look like this is a piece of clay that is putting on a pedestal in a museum. In fact, let's just do that, a pedestal. Let's do something similar, and I'm gonna do a cube, and that's maybe not that big. Right, something like that. Doesn't have to be perfect. Sometimes this is how I lose most of my time when I'm testing and doing things. It's just because I I test what I needed to test, or I do what I needed to do, and then I just started like branching out, doing these type of things that are not necessary. So all right, let's go back to what we were doing. Maybe a slightly. There we go. All right, so let's click on BPR. Right, cool. So we get this effect, and we have the drop shadow, and the light is coming from the top. I'm gonna find a better angle for this. There we go. BPR. All right, so now let's enable the new filter. So let's go to BPR filters here, and I'm gonna click on the first one, which is by default this noise that we can have it in another filter after. But the one that I want to do is let's click on the filter noise, or the filter, and change from noise to this radial overlay. So this is the new one. I'm gonna click on radial overlay, and as soon as I do that, you'll see the shadow, or not the shadow, the background kind of like gives you this darker background. And just doing that, it shows this sculpture in a much more interesting light, or in a different way. And you can control a bunch of things. So you might notice it might be a little bit hard to see in the recording. The floor has now this light, which is where the light is bouncing basically. So we can take these modifiers, right, and we can change the position. For you to see it more properly, let's just increase or reduce the radius. I'm going to increase the radius a bit. So yeah, hopefully you can see the difference of what I'm doing. And you can decide to whether or not you want to apply this to the floor or just to the sculpture. But I think doing it to the floor really helps. The follow is going to change how diffuse that sort of light is. So you'll see now it is very, very, very evident. But I think I'm going to create some kind of like penumbra, something like this. The left position, the left right position at the up and down position, that's just changing that position of that source of the light. So I just push that down or up, and then left and right. So you can do all of that, but I think it works in the way it was. The in and out position as well is kind of like further away from the camera or closer to it, and the radius is just the radius. There's no other way to do it, like the size of it, of the drop piece of the circle or the area of the light. So I think that works, right? So you'll see the difference just by turning this on and off. This is without it, and this is with it. So I think it's definitely going to enhance, even if you're doing something like this as a work in progress render, it's going to enhance it quite a bit. After that, you can use any other number of filters that previously came with ZBrush. Like, for example, if you want to add a bit more contrast or brightness, you can use the contrast auto gray, for example. Just add more contrast, or maybe the contrast user. But if you want to add some more highlights maybe, or increase, like I said, the intensity in general, you can use intensity, and then just control that with these sliders here. So I can brighten everything up a little bit. So again, really awesome set of new features, and I feel like every single feature of this new update is to push you into the sculpting space, and stop worrying about like doing perfect assets, and just explore this in a more artistic way. And that's what I love about ZBrush, that allows you to do both. It doesn't mean that you can do only one or the other. It's just the fact that you can do really, really precise and controlled stuff, really polished assets, but you also have the ability to do this really nice and more artistic looking, more traditional art, traditional sculpting pieces. Anyway, so I hope that this mini series of tips and tricks with the new features has been of help. And yeah, I'm gonna leave this one here. Hopefully you enjoyed it and enjoy the new features of ZBrush 2021.5. Cheers.